March 1, 1938. In the small Korean city of Daegu, a 28-year-old man named Lee Byung-chul sets up shop. His business is modest, a grocery stall trading dried fish, noodles, and vegetables. He calls it Samsung Sangho, Samsung meaning 3 stars, a name chosen to symbolize greatness, longevity, and prosperity. In a Korea still under Japanese occupation with limited resources and little industrial power, few could imagine that this humble store would grow into a global titan of technology. Lee was ambitious. He quickly expanded his small shop into a trading company, exporting dried fish, noodles, and produce to China and Manchuria. By the 1940s, Samsung was dabbling in food processing, sugar refining, and textiles. South Korea, devastated by the Korean War in the 1950s, needed companies that could supply essentials. Lee seized this opening. He believed in vertical integration. If Samsung could control supply chains, it could control its future. Mills, factories, and textile plants soon bore the Samsung name. By the late 1950s, Samsung was no longer just a trading company. It had entered life insurance, securities, and retail. It was becoming a chaebol, a family-owned conglomerate that spanned multiple industries. Lee Byung-chul's philosophy was simple: expand aggressively, diversify constantly, and ensure that Samsung could withstand any crisis by not depending on a single business line. He understood that Korea's economy was fragile and that survival meant being everywhere at once. In the 1960s, as South Korea embarked on rapid industrialization under government-backed development plans, Lee shifted Samsung toward heavy industry and electronics. It was a bold gamble. At the time, Japan and America dominated global technology, and few believed Korean companies could compete. But Lee poured resources into semiconductors, telecommunications, and consumer electronics. Factories were built, partnerships forged, and engineers trained both domestically and abroad. By the 1970s, Samsung was producing black and white televisions, washing machines, and refrigerators. These weren't just products, they were stepping stones toward technological self-reliance. In 1969, Samsung Sanyo Electronics, later renamed Samsung Electronics, was founded. Its early products included black and white TVs and basic appliances. The move into electronics was not glamorous at first. The products were often imitations of Japanese goods and lacked polish, but Lee understood that Korea had to learn by doing. Even if the first TVs were clunky, they were proof that Korea could manufacture consumer technology. Samsung's entry into semiconductors in the late 1970s was a turning point. It was a colossal investment requiring billions of dollars and highly skilled engineers. But Lee Byung-chul envisioned semiconductors as the rice of the future, essential components that would power all electronics. While competitors hesitated at the staggering costs, Samsung pressed forward. By 1983, the company had developed its first 64K DRAM chip, marking Korea's serious entry into the semiconductor race. The 1980s marked Samsung's true pivot to high technology. Recognizing that memory chips would be the backbone of future electronics, Samsung invested heavily in semiconductors. By the early 1990s, it had become one of the world's leading memory chip producers. This gamble would fuel Samsung's rise for decades, powering everything from personal computers to smartphones. Today, Samsung remains the world leader in DRAM and NAND flash memory, ensuring its dominance in global supply chains. But technology alone wasn't enough. Samsung also needed a global identity. Under the leadership of Lee Kun-hee, Byung-chul's son, Samsung adopted a new philosophy: quality over quantity. In 1993, Kun-hee famously declared, "Change everything except your wife and children." It was more than a slogan, it was a revolution. Factories were overhauled, management hierarchies flattened, and a relentless focus on quality and design took root. Defective products were publicly destroyed to demonstrate commitment. The company shed its image as a low-cost imitator and aspired to stand alongside global leaders. The results soon showed. In the 2000s, Samsung's sleek flat-screen TVs became global standards, their vivid displays setting living rooms aglow from Seoul to San Francisco. Its Galaxy smartphones challenged Apple's iPhone, igniting one of the fiercest rivalries in tech history. From memory chips to OLED displays, Samsung controlled the critical components of the digital age. The grocery stall had become the backbone of modern electronics. Samsung's Galaxy brand became a household name. Products like the Galaxy S3 and S4 sold in the hundreds of millions, bringing Android into the mainstream and making Samsung the largest smartphone manufacturer in the world. For the first time, Apple had a true rival, one that could match it not just in innovation but also in marketing, scale, and global reach. Samsung's growth was not without turbulence. The Asian financial crisis of 1997 threatened the entire South Korean economy. Dozens of conglomerates collapsed. Samsung survived by cutting costs, focusing on core strengths, and betting on semiconductors just when demand was about to soar. That decision cemented its dominance in memory chips, which would later drive much of its profits. In 2016, the Galaxy Note 7 battery crisis made headlines worldwide, with exploding phones tarnishing the brand's image. The debacle could have been fatal, yet Samsung responded with recalls, transparency, and improved safety measures. By implementing an 8-point battery safety check and rebuilding consumer trust, Samsung turned the crisis into a learning moment. Within a year, the Galaxy S8 launched to critical acclaim, proving the company's resilience. Beyond electronics, Samsung grew into a sprawling empire. Its businesses spanned shipbuilding, construction, insurance, biopharmaceuticals, and even luxury hotels. Samsung C&T helped construct landmarks like the Burj Khalifa in Dubai and Petronas Towers in Malaysia. Samsung Heavy Industries built some of the world's largest ships. Samsung Life Insurance remains one of Korea's most influential financial institutions. The conglomerate became so large that Samsung Electronics alone now contributes a significant share of South Korea's GDP. In many ways, Samsung is not just a company, it is the backbone of the nation's economy. Yet at its heart, Samsung remained a family business. The chaebol structure, a family-controlled conglomerate, ensured that leadership stayed within the Lee dynasty. Lee Byung-chul's vision was carried forward by Lee Kun-hee, whose transformation campaign set Samsung on a global trajectory. After Kun-hee's passing, his son Lee Jae-yong, J.Y. Lee, stepped into leadership, navigating challenges from global competition to legal battles. For critics, Samsung symbolizes the outsized power of chaebols in Korean society. For supporters, it is the engine of Korea's rise from poverty to prosperity. Samsung's culture of ambition was perhaps best captured in Kun-hee's relentless drive to innovate. He urged employees to think globally, to embrace design and user experience, not just engineering. This philosophy led to breakthroughs like the Galaxy smartphone line, which fused hardware dominance with consumer appeal. It also drove Samsung into artificial intelligence, 5G, and foldable phone technologies, ensuring it stayed at the cutting edge. Samsung also invested heavily in research and development. With billions of dollars spent annually, its R&D centers span the globe from Seoul to Silicon Valley, from Cambridge to Tel Aviv. These labs explore everything from semiconductors and displays to biotechnology and quantum computing. Few companies on Earth can claim such breadth of technological exploration. Today, Samsung is more than a tech brand. It is an empire that touches nearly every aspect of modern life. Its smartphones are held in billions of hands. Its chips are embedded in countless devices, powering data centers, cars, and artificial intelligence. Its displays illuminate everything from TVs to virtual reality headsets. Even Apple, its fiercest rival, depends on Samsung for critical components. Samsung is both competitor and supplier, rival and partner, symbolizing its central role in global technology. It also plays a cultural role. Sponsorships of the Olympics, partnerships with artists, and its role in shaping K-pop's digital presence have made Samsung not just a brand, but part of Korea's soft power. In many ways, Samsung is to Korea what General Electric once was to America, an emblem of national pride, industrial strength, and global reach. What explains this improbable journey? Partly it is Lee Byung-chul's original belief in integration. Build wide, control supply chains, and grow relentlessly. Partly it is Lee Kun-hee's insistence on transformation, destroy mediocrity, pursue excellence, and never be complacent. And partly it is a culture of resilience, surviving crises, learning from failure, and always pushing forward. Samsung embodies the notion that reinvention is not a one-time act, but a permanent state of being. From a market stall in Daegu to the forefront of global technology, Samsung's story is not just one of business success. It is a story of resilience, vision, and the audacity to dream beyond borders. It reminds us that even the most unassuming beginnings can grow into world-shaping legacies. It is the story of a company that began with dried fish and noodles and ended up designing the future of computing, communication, and culture. And perhaps that is the final lesson. Greatness does not always start with wealth, resources, or privilege. Sometimes it begins with a stall in a marketplace, a name with 3 stars, and a founder who dares to believe that the ordinary can become extraordinary. Samsung is living proof. What begins in scarcity can become a superpower when fueled by vision, discipline, and courage.